BYD are not quite a household name within the UK yet, but outside of the UK, well, it's a completely different story. Think of Tesla EV styles of domination within China. In fact, BYD employ over 1 million people, and this just shows the scale on which they're building electric vehicles for the UK, but just vehicles in general for the rest of the world. And they are set to take on the electric market within the UK, and they've been doing a very good job. The BYD Sea Lion is still one of my favourite cars I've ever driven. The Seal is so sleek and stylish, and the Dolphin is a great entry-level hatch. But we needed something a bit more compact. Introducing the new BYD Dolphin Surf. This compact city car is set to take on the likes of the Hyundai Inster and the Dacia Spring. As you may know if you've watched this channel before, I fell in love with the Hyundai Inster recently and found it extremely efficient. So can this BYD Dolphin Surf take on that model? Well, that's what we're going to find out. Hi guys, I'm Tish and welcome back to my channel Auto Social UK. This is the home where small cars get big love. And in today's video, I'm going to be diving into everything there is to know about the BYD Dolphin Surf. I'll be telling you all the specifications, I'll be taking it out for a test drive or sitting in London traffic at least, and we'll be discovering if this can take on the best of the industry. So if that sounds good, then please keep watching, and if you like new car reviews and car content, well, you're in the right place. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. So firstly, I think it's a good idea to start by talking about the design, and this is probably going to split a few opinions, right? I think this looks great, but I like something which is a bit garish. It may not be to everybody's taste, but I find it interesting that with the Hyundai Inster, it's almost like they went for an older audience with the Inster. It's quirky, but maybe a bit too quirky. This, however, this airs on towing the line between feeling premium and sporty, but also being fun. There's loads of fun elements, including this wonderful colour choice. And don't worry, you can get some other colour choices included in your BYD Dolphin Surf. This model that I have here, this is the 45 kilowatt hour battery. And this model is the most expensive in the range. But the range begins from under £20,000. So really good value for money, and better value for money that we've seen so far from things like the Hyundai Inster. This could be the answer for people looking for a compact electric vehicle which will be cheap to run and also cheap to own. So let's start by talking about that design. What are the key design details to take a look at? I have to admit, when I saw the huge fleet of BYD Dolphin Surfs that they had outside of Alexandra Palace this morning, I was shocked. I wasn't expecting something which looked so sporty. I was expecting something which was much safer, like the BYD Dolphin, its larger brother. The Surf, however, feels much more sleek and stylish, and you've got lots of styling elements which we don't often see on cars. For instance, you've got this black part of the bonnet which just sits at the top. We used to call this a bonnet bra when it was actually at the front here, and it's very reminiscent of modified cars, and it does remind me a little bit of a modified design. You've got this sharp bumper around the front, and then coming around to the side, you've got lots of lovely cladding which just contour the vehicle. Depending which of the specifications you go for, you either get 15-inch or 16-inch alloy wheels. Of course, the latter is fitted to the model that I'm driving today. And unlike the entry-level Hyundai Inster and also the Dacia Spring, this does get proper alloys instead of hubcaps. So it already feels a little bit more premium hatch than it does budget city car. You also have these two creases which just run parallel to the back of the car. I think it looks smart. Like I said, you're going to have to let me know what you think down below, because I know this isn't going to be for everyone. But if there's a big wing, I'm sold. And this is a pretty prominent wing, right? Look at that. That is one of the biggest wings I've seen on a small car for a long time. And you also have that continued styling of the light bar which runs the whole centre of this boot. Now, you will notice that it does jut out slightly when it comes to the rear, and it helps with that continued aerodynamic sporty look, but also that's going to maximise your boot space, which we're definitely going to talk about a little bit later on. I also like the fact that lower down you've got this black bumper, because we want it to look sporty, but we also want it to be practical. If this is going to be a city car used by young people, then it kind of needs to be a little bit foolproof. And that means if you're reversing up to something and you give it a little bit of a tap or a bump, you're not going to do any damage to the paintwork. You're simply going to hit this plastic bumper, which I think is quite a good design detail. Okay, so let's take a look on the interior of the car to see if it's just as impressive. So the exterior is flash, but what about the interior? Well, inside here, it does feel a little bit more subtle, and I think this is where you start to notice the budget changes. So there's a lot of plastic within this cabin. You've got hard scratchy plastic on top of the dash, and you also have plastic on top of the doors, and you'll find it in little parts of the centre console as well. But they have mixed it together with a use of different fabrics. So you do have this lovely sweeping, almost suede effect. It's not quite suede, but I think that's a good thing. It's going to last a little bit longer. So you've got that kind of just waves throughout the cabin, and also you find a little bit of that on the doors, and the seats are lovely. Of course, they're not real leather, but you do have these very nice, almost bucketed winged seats. These feel much more expensive than what you'd expect to find in this budget car. They're also heated if you go for this top spec comfort trim. They're quite comfortable as well. They don't have the most amount of bolstering, so how well they'll wear, I'm not too sure. And for longer journeys, they might be a little bit uncomfortable, but really this is a city car which is going to be doing those shorter sprints. I think you'd be able to cope with this car over time, but I think it's really going to want to be used for those shorter city commute journeys. It's a really nice layout actually. I like it a lot. So you've got a very nice steering wheel, lovely physical buttons. You've got some nice scrollers as well, which feel pretty high quality. This centre console, loads and loads of space down here. Apparently there's 20 different storage sections within this. Pretty cool. You've got a couple of cup holders which are in this centre console, and you haven't got an armrest storage. You've just got storage underneath it, which is fine because it means it can be accessed by the rear passengers as well. Wireless charging, which is up front here in a nice position. You might be a little bit tempted to use your mobile phone with this positioned here. I like it more when they tuck it away somewhere so you're not tempted to touch it. You've also got a USB and USB-C charger which can be found just down there, so that's pretty good. Now if we turn on this screen, because this is BYD's party piece. This is their very famous touchscreen. And what makes it famous? Well, it's this, of course, the rotating screen. Now this is not as large as in some of its other models within the range, things like the BYD Sea Lion and the Seal, but I quite like it. This is the perfect compact size. The only problem is it really does look a bit like an iPad has been stuck onto the dashboard. However, if you like your gimmicks, you're probably going to quite like this. You've got some good features included. Things like satellite navigation, you've got Spotify, and you've also got DAB. And this basically works like a smartphone. So you swipe across, and then you can also access different widgets and different apps, and then to get rid of those you can also then slide across and close them like you would with an iPhone. There's loads of functions including the climate control which just run along the bottom, and I like the fact that these are visible on the screen at the bottom. However, don't worry, ta-da! There's some actual climate control functions. Hurrah! Well done, BYD. And this makes it really easy to just do those quick functions like turning it on and off. You also can turn your air conditioning on and off here. And there's some other functions including the drive mode, and here is where you'll find your gear selector. Pound for pound, this is starting to look a very good value for money vehicle. Sure, some of the materials are not perfect, but I certainly wasn't expecting them to be. It still feels cheery in this cabin, whilst not being quite so garish as the exterior. It's a bit more palatable. I think more people are going to appreciate the interior than they are the exterior. But it's very important how this car drives. So I think it's about time we got out on the road. If you were looking for a full test of this car with driving dynamics and twisty B roads, yeah, you're not in any luck, because BYD decided to launch this car at Alexandra Palace, and that means that I'm sitting in gridlock London traffic. My favourite. Although saying that, this is actually a pretty nice place to spend time. It does feel like a proper car, and that may seem like a weird thing to say, but I've driven the Dacia Spring, which is a little bit cheaper than this car, but it just feels worlds apart in terms of quality. That is super cheap. It's made of lots and lots of plastic. It's got skinny little tyres, and you literally lean as you go around corners. This just feels like a proper confident EV. Now let's talk about the battery sizes. So there's actually two different batteries. You've got an entry-level 30 kilowatt hour battery, and then you've got this one, which is a larger battery. This is a 45 kilowatt hour battery, and it uses BYD's Blade technology, and this gets 211 miles of claimed range when you're doing mixed driving. But interestingly, if you're doing city driving, like I am today, you can see around 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour, if not even more, and that's going to equal more like 300 miles of range, which is pretty impressive. I feel like I want to take this thing for a proper test when it comes to efficiency. I did that with the Hyundai Inster, and we saw results of nearly 6 miles per kilowatt hour. So if we can get this up to that, then we're going to be seeing a real decent amount of efficiency. I mean, even driving from Alexandra Palace to here, I've got 4 miles per kilowatt hour, and that's gone up from 3. So we're definitely moving up and up. This particular car, this is a slightly larger battery, as I mentioned, and this gets a 115 kilowatt motor, and that gives you 154 brake horsepower. So pretty nippy. I thought I'd test it off of the line when I finally have the ability to do so, and it feels actually really quick, maybe a bit too quick. I don't know if you heard, but the wheels did spin a little bit when I just pushed it on quite hard. And that's the thing with this car, 154 brake horsepower in a compact city car, it doesn't need that amount of pace. I'd be more inclined to go for the smaller battery with less power. I think it'd be more suited to the car. Something else that this car has a ton of is, of course, safety features, especially being a Chinese car. And that is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because ultimately it's keeping you safe. It's got traffic sign recognition, you've also got lane assist, anti-collision warning, and you have a sensor. So you might just see a sensor on there on this pillar at the front, and that is checking that your eyes are on the road. It will tell you to keep your eyes on the road, and it will physically say eyes on road. You have to turn this off every time you turn the car back on, so it can be a little bit irritating, but ultimately if you keep your eyes on the road, you shouldn't have too much of an issue. Something I do find really good about BYD is they are ultimately a tech-heavy company, and that means they're developing all of their tech all of the time. And some things work incredibly well, including this voice activation system. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get it to end my navigation and then restart my navigation to Alexandra Palace, and we'll see how well it does it. Cancel my navigation.
Deactivating route guidance.
Get me directions to Alexandra Palace.
I found Alexandra Palace. Would you like to drive there?
Yes.
Okay. Starting navigation.
As you can see, that was so simple, and it avoids me having to dig around in the touchscreen. And that's not the only thing it can do either. It actually has so many functions, many more than I've seen in any cars, including rotate screen.
Okay, rotating the screen.
This technology may seem a little bit gimmicky, but if you're like me and you use Siri on your smartphone all of the time, I think this could come in super handy. In terms of driving dynamics, like I said, I can't really test this car properly because I'm either in standstill traffic or, like now, I'm kind of on a motorway. So there's no real in between to be able to test, you know, how dynamic this thing feels. We'll just do a little bit of a test there. It's actually pretty good. It's got very light steering for the city, but it certainly doesn't feel too light. As in, there's still a connection through the steering wheel. Cars that I've driven recently, especially from JQ and Amoda, they're so light, you lose that connection. But this actually feels a nice combination of being light when you're at low speeds and parking, but when you're out on this open road, actually feels pretty good. Better than I was expecting anyway. Road noise is not too bad. There is a fair bit of road noise, more than what I've tested in other vehicles recently, but obviously once again a lot better than the Dacia Spring, as it is a bit more cushioned and plusher on the interior. And it continues to punch above its weight when it comes to practicality, because inside this boot you get 308 litres, which is comparable to something like the Honda Jazz. Not quite as smart as the Honda Jazz though, you haven't got any magic seats, and it does feel a little bit cheaply trimmed inside. The practicality of the boot can probably be best described as does the job. It's not perfect in every way. There is quite a load lip, but you do get this practical plastic bumper. Just like I said, like with parking, this will also aid with lifting items in. You're not going to scratch the paintwork. You also have a couple of tether down points on either side, and inside of here you have extra storage for your charging cables. So it's pretty practical in some senses. You can also drop down these rear seats, so using the tabs, really easy. And then you have not a flat load area, so not quite as good as the Hyundai Inster, but as you can see that goes really far forward, and you're going to have over 1,000 litres of storage. So practicality isn't perfect, but I think it's pretty good. So whilst this is a good boot with a decent amount of space, it doesn't quite have the quirks of the Hyundai Inster. You can't sleep in the back of the Dolphin, so for me, the Inster has it when it comes to boot space. Something which I'm really loving, which may seem a little bit strange, is door handles. They're the perfect combination of being easy to use but still looking aerodynamic and sleek. So they are slim fitted to the bodywork, but they're still just really easy to use. They're just door handles. You also have this floating roof design separated by this black piece of design. It does give it that floatingness separating the two parts of the car. And they could have put a door handle up in this top corner, like many models, to give it that 3-door feel. But I love the fact that they've still gone for these really easy to use rear door handles. And can we just remember, this car is 4 metres long, very small. However, it's like a TARDIS. It's huge. I've got loads and loads of space. I've got loads of legroom. I've also got plenty of headroom as well. It is only a 4-seater, and I think that's a really good job for doing that. They could have squeezed in a 3rd seat and it would have been tiny in the back here, but they've really maximised on these 2 seats here, so they're nice and wide. I've also got loads of legroom. It all feels very positive. The only problem, however, is there's hardly any amenities at all. So I haven't got an armrest. I've got these kind of really cheap feeling deep door pockets, so I could put a bottle of water in there, but I haven't got anywhere for the rear seat passengers to put any cups of coffee or any drinks. I've got access to a little bit of storage, and there's also these pockets on the backs of the seats. But other than that, it feels a little bit basic in the back. Very similar to the boot space. It feels a bit unfinished in my opinion, but let's face it, this is an affordable car. This is not the top of the range premium, and maybe we're being treated to a little bit of luxury when it comes to some other competitors, where it makes this feel basic, but really it has everything you need, especially for rear seat passengers. So it seems like for the BYD Dolphin Surf, BYD have been able to achieve that figure when it comes to the entry-level price point that all the other manufacturers seem to have missed. We were promised all these super low prices, but when they actually arrived, they were much more expensive. Take, for instance, the Hyundai Inster. And this feels absolutely miles above the quality that you get in the Dacia Spring. This feels like a proper car. I also love the fact that it's fun and quirky, but also stylish. It has loads of personality. Sure, it's not perfect, but you know what? It's pretty damn good. But let me know, what do you think of the BYD Dolphin Surf? Pop it in the comments down below. I really wish they'd stuck with Seagull. It's such a better name. If you do want to see more videos like this, then make sure you go ahead and you hit the subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and until next time, see you later.